Halacha Yud Gimel. Misha only matzah mishumeres lekazayis. So he only has one matzah of shmur matzah. The other ones can be eaten because it's not chometz. So we go down to the Peirush. Misha only matzah mishumeres elo kazayis, and the person doesn't have to be moitzi yotze achilas matzah only. The matzah that's matzah shmura, the shem mitzvah. What does he do when he Mosdos matzah sheina mishumeres? So the main kazayas is the last one. Then that's the only, he doesn't make the achilles matzah at the beginning, only later. And afterwards, again, to leave the taste in his mouth, as we learned by the it's the afikoyim, and you don't eat after it anything. The Magen Mishnah cites the Rif. If he doesn't have all the matzah in the Suda matzah shmur, ela kazayas shmur bilvad. That's what he has. So first he eats that from the matzah, which is not shmur. Then he makes a brocha hamoitzi, and that he makes the brocha. And he doesn't make the achilus matzah. And the shmur he eats lechel matzah v'oichel, and then he eats the moro, and then he puts the matzah and moro together without a brocha. That's how I'm not going to write that. So therefore, the Riv seems to be saying that when do you eat it at the beginning? So the Magen Mishnah says that even also the Rambam agrees that he eats the moro before the matzah. Because Kazayas and Matzah, Shmura, he eats at the end. He means like the Seder of the Riv, but he should have written it. Why didn't he write it? According to the Riv, he eats it at the beginning of the Matzah. The Ran explains what the Riv writes. He only has a Kazayas, and he writes he eats Kazayas Echol LaMatzah, Echol LaKoirach. How can that be? He doesn't have two Kazayas. But he means that he should eat the Koirach from Matzah that's Ein Shmura. That's the way he understood the words in the Rosh. Further, more the Ran says it could be that the Riv is talking about he only has a Kazayas. But the Kavona is, in other words, for each of the things that he needs a Kazayas for, he has a Kazayas. Meaning he has a Kazayas for the Matzah Choyva, and a Kazayas for Koirach. But he doesn't have more. So according to the Riv, we learned before that that's when he eats it at the beginning. But he has two kazesim, one for matzah, one for koirach. The Torah brings down that the Riv, and he says, I don't understand. My father didn't understand it because according to the Riv, he ate it ksayas matzah, shmur at the end. How can he eat afterward the koirach? What is he talking about? So he understood. He means at the very end he'll eat the matzah, and then he'll eat the mor, and he'll eat the koirach. The whole reason of the mor is to mevatel tam matzah. It's gonna but it's better. She should not do. He shouldn't do like Hilo. It's only zech on the mikdash. Rather than mevatel tam matzah should be for the end. And that's what the Rabbi writes. He should eat kazayas matzah shmur at the end. He should make achis matzah, and after that, nothing. So when does he eat the moro? We'll see. Balaito writes he should eat the beginning of the seder kazayas matzah, she'ein shmur. He makes a moitzah, and he makes an achis matzah, and kazayas matzah shmur. He eat at the end without a brocha, not like the Rambam says here that he makes the brocha at the end. The Rosh writes, he should write at the beginning, make the brocha, and Ksayas matzah shmura, so he'll eat a bit of tei oven, and make the moitzi nachis matzah, and even though at the end he'll eat a matzah the shein is shmura, that's only a commemoration of the Korban Pesach. The Shulchan Aruch writes, Mechaber writes, if somebody doesn't have only one kazayas, he makes an achidus mora, and he eats. When he finishes his suda from matzah, the enim mishumeres, then he only makes the achilles matzah, and he eats that kazayas, and he doesn't eat anything after it. We'll turn the page. That's very similar to the Rambam. The Mishnah Berurah writes, at the beginning he says, makes a brocha al matzah she'ein shmura, at the end he eats, and then he eats mora, and even though a person should eat matzah and then the mora, because it says al matzah zemurim yochluah, where you can't do it. Otherwise, this is the way you do it. Mechaber left out this din of achilas kerach because he's talking when he doesn't have only exayis of matzah shmura. You can't make kerach mi matzah she'ena shmura, so he holds there's no way of making it from matzah she'ena shmura. However, if he has two kazesim, he would do one kazayis at the beginning, make a moitzin achilas matzah, and the kazayis hasheni he'd eat at the end lavi koimen. And it seems he would not eat the kerach again anyway because he only has two kazesim. The first one he has to eat as matzah, shmur matzah. So the Mishnah Berurah doesn't help us out very much over here. Play with this now. So the Magen Mishnah cites, the Rajah writes, somebody forgot to eat a kazayas matzah at the end, lavi koimen, and he finished the whole seder. What should he do? He should go ahead and be mevorach hamoitzi, and he should eat a kazayas matzah, mevorach biras hamozon, without a kois. Biras hamozon doesn't need a kois. It goes further. This means since he already drank all the koises, he's not obligated with another kois. The Shulchan Aruch writes, Mechaber, if he didn't eat the avikoyim and he didn't remember until he washed his hands, or he said havlon and vorach, he still eats the avikoyim without a brochas on moitze. Even though usually we say that once a person says, I'm going to stop eating, he finished eating, on Pesach it's mutter, because we're asmuchen al shulchan Hashem. And certainly a person wants to keep him kind the mitzvahs Hashem, but we forget ourselves. Therefore, we wash our hands doesn't mean anything. We're not the balabayas. And therefore, when he says he wants to go ahead and bench, it's just like a guest at somebody else's table. The balabayas is not totally in him. If he made Biras HaMozon already, before he made Beri Priagofen, what he should do is wash his hands and eat again, and he should eat Afikoimen, and if he doesn't, and then he should make the Beri Priagofen. If he didn't remember till after he made the Beri Priagofen, he shouldn't eat Afikoimen, he should rely on the matzah that he ate at the beginning of the meal. That all of them were shmuras, we're talking where they were all shmura. In a place where they're noig to do shmiras matzah mishas ktsire, even if he didn't remember until after halal, he should wash his hands and he should make a moitzi and he should eat the avikoymen. Why? And the Mishnah Berurah writes, even if he made the brocha already on kois revi, you should go and make another brocha on the kois, and you don't have to worry. There's most of all koises. The Mishnah Berurah says, since kois lishi that he made the brocha biras hamozon is considered a mistake. Like kois hazois, then now he's making the brocha leo after achilas avikoyim and his kois hashlishis. Even though the shekoy shel halal tzrichol yois or is say it is not ma'akiv because he said halal already. It doesn't matter. Each one, because as long as he does on halal and he does on biras hamozon, and the Mishnah Berurah adds, well, we're not even chol shana levar biras hamozon without a kois. He should wash his hands. He should eat the avikoymen, and he should not do it on the kois. Now we're learning Periches Halacha Yudalad, the last Halacha in Yudalad in Ches. Mishi Yoshem Suda. Oh, this happens sometimes. Somebody who is sleeping in the middle of the Suda, the Hikitz, and he woke up, Einochois of Oichel. He cannot eat again. Here we're talking about when they're eating Korban Pesach, and in Korban Pesach you didn't have a portion that you had to finish. Whoever ate more, ate more. If everybody fell asleep, if only some of them fell asleep, then those that sleep can eat again, because some of them were awake. Near the mu, but if they all fell asleep, kulam v'niadru. When they got up, lo yoichlu. You shouldn't eat. Nisnamnu kulam. if they were not sleeping actually, they were just dozing, then they can go ahead and eat. So the Magen Mishnah points out from this that he says this Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah and also Hilchos Korban Pesach, that he holds that this is the din even today. And it occurs in the Mishnah. When the Mishnah Msorchim says if some of the people fell asleep, then you can eat. If they all fell asleep, you shouldn't eat. Rabbi says if they're dozing, they can eat. Sleep. If they all fell asleep, you cannot eat. He's of the opinion that since we paskin that you don't eat after the Suda anything, that's it. The same will apply with matzah, which is Zeichel Korban Pesach. But if he slept, he finished his Suda, and he's not permitted to eat anything, and he can't eat. He cannot continue more matzah. Rae Gann brings a raya that this is said also in matzah from the Gemara Pesachim 120b. Abaye was sitting in Leil Pesach before a rabbi, and he saw that rabbi was dozing. He asked him, "Are you sleeping?" Rabbi saw that Abaye was sleeping, and he asked him, "You sleeping?" On Abaye, "I'm dozing, but I'm not sleeping." And we learned if with the dozing they can eat, but if they fell asleep they can't eat. Since he was only dozing, he could continue to eat. Abaye and Rabba were after the Chorma Beis HaMikdash, and they didn't have a Korban Pesach. In school, they hold this is the din. From here, the Rambam learns that this din is Rae Gann Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah. The Magen Mishnah brings further, there's a shiur that this Mishnah is only talking regarding the Korban Pesach, not about matzah. Regarding matzah, if he fell asleep, he has to wash his hands again, like anybody else who fell asleep in the middle of the meal. And what Rabbi asked Abaye, if you're sleeping, it was only to tell him if he was sleeping, he should have to wash his hands again. And therefore, it's not that relevant as far as matzah goes, that there's a noig b'achilas matzah that you can't eat anymore. You can be able to eat again because it's not a Korban Pesach. The Rambam argues, if Pesach hoyoichel v'hu yechidi, if he was eating Korban Pesach and he's alone, eino choyzer oichel mimenu mishum Pesach hadas nifsel. If we're talking about a Korban Pesach, then he was the only one eating the whole Korban Pesach and he fell asleep. It teaches you shouldn't eat the Korban Pesach alone. He doesn't go back and eat mishum because bozer kodshem is nifsel Pesach hadas. If he didn't have a Korban Pesach, then noitel yodov, he washes his hands and makes a moitzi and eats. Shashino mefsikos, if he fell asleep, then it separates the moitzi, and therefore v'ushioshnu kulam. But that's only when they were falling asleep. Everyone fell asleep. Also, that even if they were dozing, they can continue to eat. And we'll turn the page. Dozing is not considered as a chadas for Pesach. Therefore, by the meal, it's also not a hefsek. Dozing is not a hefsek. So you see that he paskins like him. Now, the Magen Mishnah and the Lechem Mishnah both side, there are unfortunate that say that Abaye didn't fall asleep at the Suda, only in the Beis HaMedrash. And what does it mean that Rabbi asked him if he's sleeping and he said that he's dozing? To tell us there's a difference between dozing and sleeping, Mishnah. That's the way Rabban Alevi learns it. So Lechem Mishnah writes that the Rambam learns that Rabbi Yossi explains what it says in the Mishnah, Yoshnu Kulam Yochal, is only when they're in a deep sleep. But if they're dozing, they can eat. But the Rambam explains that the Rabbi Yossi is on the beginning of the Mishnah, which says Yoshnu Miktzos and Yochlu. If some of them are sleeping, you can continue to eat. This Rabbi Yossi says, Dafke, those who were sleeping were dozing. But if they were sleeping, those few, they cannot eat. According to him, we have to say that the Ma'aseh of Rabba Abaya, that they ate together, and therefore Abaya said to Rabba, he's not sleeping, only dozing. And since only some of them are dozing, therefore they can continue to eat because the other person there keeps the status of the Suda going. But the Rambam will explain that Abaya ate alone, and therefore when he fell asleep, if he had fallen asleep, then even if he was dozing, well, he says he was dozing in order not to be a hefsek. Because if he was eating with Rabbah, even if he was sleeping, he can continue to eat because Rabbah was awake, and he could have continued without washing. Rabbeinu Manoach cites that the difference between dozing and sleeping is brought in the Gemara. What's called dozing? If you call him and he answers, but he doesn't know how to answer you. In other words, he's groggy. And if you remind him where they're up to, he continues. The Rambam explains, when you ask him where did you put that vessel, and he doesn't know. But when you tell him, he remembers. Therefore, when he's dozing, there's no Hesach Hadas. But when he's sleeping, there is Hesach Hadas. Furthermore, the Agos Maimonides writes that all the Meforshim agree that this din that the Rambam brings is also become Pesach. Also in Matzah, that's Rashi and the Rashbam all explain it. But Tosis argue that it doesn't seem so, because we don't find Matzah Pesach only to mitzvahs that have to do with themselves, and not a din of other places. Tosis explains that the Ma'aseh of Rabbi Abaya is brought in the Yerushalmi regarding tainus. If he went to sleep with a Leila tainus and he didn't make a condition, and when he'll get up he can continue to eat. This is what many people do. If sunup is late and you want to eat beforehand, so you'll have koyach to fast the whole day, you make a condition before you go to sleep that you're able to eat it when you wake up. So then, if he went to sleep and he didn't make this condition, even if he wakes up before morning, he can't eat anymore. However, if he just dozed off, it's mutter. There's a Ma'aseh b'Rabba that he fell asleep, and he brings raya, he brings proof that somebody who dozes is mutter midin Pesach sheyoshon nershav ke'achilo b'shtei mekoyim misrake sheyoshon avol nisnan loy. And he brings a raya that dozing even by Pesach is different. He can go ahead, like if he fell asleep, he's like eating in two places. But if he dozed, it's not considered like he ate in two places. We'll turn the page. Mechaber writes in Siman Tuf Ayin Ches, somebody fell asleep in the middle of the Suda, and he woke up, he cannot continue to eat. Nechabur, they fell asleep, some of them, in the middle of the Suda, so they can continue to eat. If all of them fell asleep, and they got up, they cannot continue to eat. If they only dozed off, then they can all continue to eat. The Halacha writes that Choy Yaakov and other poskim disagree. Only if some of them dozed off, it's meant to eat. But if some of them fell asleep, those that fell asleep, they can't continue to eat. Yaakov says that's the halacha, and that's the Rashbam that we mentioned earlier. And you're right that he didn't mention his words in the Mishnah Berurah because there are a lot of poskim who feel that the whole din of sleeping is regarding the Korban Pesach and not the Matzah Manazeh. And therefore you can be machmer only when everyone fell asleep, but not if some of them fell asleep, and those who didn't fall asleep can continue. So there are more rights. This din is only when they fell asleep after they started to eat the afikoyman. But falling asleep before is not considered a hefsek, because I guess if they fell asleep with a condition to eat later, with the thought that they're going to eat later the afikoyman. The Mishnah Berurah writes, whether he has to make a moitzi another time because of Shena, he cites you the halacha in Kufay and Ches, where he says over there that you would have to make a brocha. Hilchos, you would have to wash your hands again and make a brocha. Hilchos and a moitzi. Hilchos shiur Tefillah, Kiddush, and the kriyos of Pesach. Where did the Rambam write it? Amena Manayach writes. Shiur the Rambam writes in Sefer Hilchos Musaf. Say it to Pesach. He writes whether it's Yontiv or Ben Cholin Moshe Moed or it was Shabbos Yontiv. The Ein Choismen Bo, and also the Nusach of V'Todienu, Ve'ech, and how one signs off on the brochas. Also the Nusach of V'Todienu, that you say Motzei Shabbos if Yom Tov is after Shabbos. Also the Ein of Tal, you mentioned at the beginning of the first day of Pesach. He said it in Hilchos Tefillah. Nusach Kiddush, Yontif Shal Pesach, that happened to be in Shabbos or in the middle of Shabbos, or Motzei Shabbos. He wrote in Hilchos Shabbos. And which parshas you read on Yontif of Pesach and Haftarahs, the Yom After, and then the parsha you read in the Torah b'Shabbos Chol HaMoed, Pesach, Haftarah, Haftiram Bo, he explains in Hilchos Tefillah. So all we can say at this moment is Chasal said of Pesach Hilchosim, and we merit bringing the Korban Pesach and its proper place in the Beis Hamikdash because